Welcome to Hobbitea this week.
Episode number 2.
Yes, episode 2. This week we're doing folklore.
And our familial histories and how that ties in. We hope you enjoy it. We'll try to keep it reasonably coherent.
Bye. Episode 2, oh my god.
We apologise.
Yeah.
No fucking apology jar this week.
No, we're not doing it again. No, we're not doing it again. And it has been a disaster week, so...
So, bear with us.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yes, as we mentioned in the little forward bits, this week is folklore and familial histories. I've just realised that we're both doing the swinging thing. Let's do.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. Gotta stay still.
Sorry. Yeah.
But not sorry.
Anyway, so we would like to talk a little bit about familial histories and how that relates to stories that you're told, stories that you hear about your family, which get passed down, change, become folklore in their own right, and how that relates to, pretty much everything, how we relate to ourselves as humans and our favourite folklore and mythical creatures.
Yes.
If you've been paying attention to the blog, I did do a post about my favourite witch, which is Baba Yaga, which ties in a lot with my familial history and my great aunt Bob moving over from Russia with her family. And we're going to hear a little bit in just a minute from Georgia in what we call paraphrase story time.
Oh, I'm excited.
It's going to be really great. I'm going to try and not do my Alan Carr laugh. So.
Oh God, I just did mine.
So, if you'd like to sit down, get yourself comfy, maybe get a brew,
and some snacks.
We are going to go into one of our favourite stories from George's family history, and
oh no,
I'm going to let her do it. It's going to be great.
Like
I'm going to out you right now.
Oh my God, right. So,
horse stealing time.
So I make the joke a lot because everyone who knows my dad knows that he's
a chaos being.
Literally a being of chaos, okay? And what I found out from the stories he would tell me about his family is that it seems to be like a generational skip of chaos beings, because his dad was not a chaos being. He had his moments. It was there, it flashed. But I think it was his grandfather's brother, which would be like my great uncle. He was also a chaos being. It's quite scary. I'm terrified to have kids now, because it skipped me. It's my dad, so it skipped me. So I just know that if I ever decide to have, spawn a child, it will be a chaos being.
Little cross goblin.
Yeah. So yes, my great uncle.
I just said that.
Sorry, Mac.
I actually like spawn a thing.
Spawn a thing. So, yeah, my great uncle, my great-grandfather's brother, I believe, was apparently a horse thief, but not like in the traditional sense, not like a bandit. Like, he stole the horse of the English commanders, of the army, basically. He stole an army horse. And because he didn't have one, that was literally it. They no longer had a horse in the family, and they needed one. So he decided that one looks good, and stole it. But I don't know whether it just like fell out of his brain when he did it, or if he just gave no fucks. But it had the stamp. You know how they brand horses on the rear? It had the stamp of the English Army on the butt, and he rode it to church on Sunday.
Yes,
Just rolled up with this army horse, and the commander was there, and promptly drew his sword, pointed it at my great uncle, and was like, "Please, horse, like, please get down from the horse." And the guy was like, "No, like, it's my horse." And he's like, "I can assure you, it's not. You know, it's got the brand that says it belongs to me. Please get off the horse." And my great uncle proceeded to not only not get off the horse, but hit the the army guy. So. Yeah, this has kind of thrown me a lot in how this story, or this folklore of my family, has really thrown me in how I view myself, because I'm quite straight-laced, follow the rules, just an anxiety-riddled being in general. So to know that there was just this guy in my bloodline that gave truly no fucks about anything. Like, when he turned up in court to be tried for this horse thieving...
Yeah.
They just went, "Yeah, that's George." Nothing happened. They were just like, "Yeah, he does this." And it really throws me, because I'm so straight-laced.
Yes.
That
So worried
Yeah,
about...
I'm so worried about anything. And it's just, I would love to embody that.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. I would love to embody that chaos beingness, which my dad seems to have, because of the just generalness of his being. Like... He truly cares nothing about what other people think of him. But I think stories like that are important, and which is why we were saying about folklore and family history.
Yes.
It's because they shape you. And again, it's just such a baffling thing to me that I would have someone like that in my family.
Yes.
But you have some interesting people in your family as well.
Yes, my family's a bit of a wild one.
Yeah. Well, I should mention my family's Irish, so that's why it's important that the commander was English, because it took place in Ireland.
Yes, and my family originally came from Russia. I still have somewhere saved, probably on a memory stick, that I can't find, a lot of history from my, I believe, second cousin, Mark Sadobrekov, and the wildness of our family tree, I think, is truly embodied by my great-aunt Dorothy, great-grandma Dorothy. I have a big family. Let's move forward. My father's mother, Dorothy, who constantly throughout her life, and I loved her to pieces, but she basically was the same as me, messy to high hell. And this was a constant bone of contention with my family because she had so many children. And her standard response was, well, if we were still in Russia, I'd be a princess and I wouldn't have to do this. And that pretty much sums up most of the people in my family, I feel.
Bougie.
A little bit bougie. And my great-aunt Bar, I loved her for all of this. My great-aunt Barbara was pretty much one of my closest sort of great-aunts, at least in terms of affection and time spent together. And she was very adamant that she wanted me to continue with Russian family traditions. I'm trying currently to learn Russian. Please don't ask me to speak any. And it's...
I don't know how she does it. It baffles me.
It's been very interesting. And one of my favourite sort of heirlooms that I have... well, actually, it's a bundle of things that she gave me before she passed away. I have a Russian shawl, which has white roses on a green background. I have a few wooden spoons and bowls, traditionally painted. And also my absolute favourite, although the shawl's gorgeous, is a puzzle book that my great-uncle Victor made for Mensa Society because he was the chairman, the world chairman, I believe, for Mensa while he was alive. And it's basically like him bitching for 10 pages about the fact that he'd been asked to do a puzzle book originally. This is actually the second one that he did. It's a signed copy that he'd given to his sister, my great-aunt Bar, and yeah, he's just bitching and moaning about the fact that the Society for the Super Intelligent would sit around all day basically figuring out fake problems and brain teasers. And he was like, I tried to make the first book impossible so you wouldn't ask me to do it again, and you have, so guess what, fuckers? It's going to be even worse. And I absolutely love that. I wish, again, I'm very much the same, I wish I could embody some of that confidence, some of the confidence that my great Aunt Bar had. Like, we'd go into, you know, any restaurant when we were down to see my great Aunt Bar, and she'd walk up to the bar at the front, a little bit of hobbling, and but that's a story for another time. And she'd basically be like, I'm going to apologise in advance. We're loud. And that would be the end of it.
We should start doing that.
We have just a tidbit here, before we violently U-turn back in a minute. We've decided we're the human equivalent of the Doppler effect, because we get too close together and it's like...
Meow.
So,
that's us. That's the noise we made.
So we apologise if listening to this is, like, physically painful.
Yeah, we do. We understand.
But at the same point, we're not going to stop because we love it. So
it's funny how you mentioned that, though, because we're talking about familial history. It's like you've carried on that loudness. You know?
Oh God, yes, booming voice, loud laugh, shotgun cackle half the time, and I feel that my great Aunt Bar must be very proud of me. Honestly,
it's nice that I like having those stories, though, because
oh God,
you know,
yes.
It's again we're talking about stories. It's like and how they shape you, and it's like it's wild to think that you're related to these people. I think, you know, and then how that affects you, because like you said, we wish we were more, I don't know, less restrained, I think is the word, you know, because that's how our family was, and you kind of want to embody that. I think we've all got that primal drive when you hear these stories to be like someone who kind of helped gift you with life, you know, you've got to be grateful for them. If they didn't get laid, you know, you wouldn't be here, so you kind of want to honour them by embodying what you think of as their best traits, which is really interesting. But,
definitely.
yeah, and we've also... The thing is, though, you're Russian, I'm Irish. We live in the Midlands, though.
Yeah,
so,
neither of us has lived outside of England, and, you know, I suppose most of the time we still relate to ourselves as British.
We're going to call ourselves
we
anything.
drink a lot of tea, so I think that counts for something.
But we got... was it me or you who suggested it? I forget. But we started looking into, like, local folklore. Because I've never really looked into it. Because I've lived in a few places over the UK, and I never really looked into local folklore. You hear about the general, so, you know, Robin Hood, King Arthur, although we do have a claim to that in the Midlands, which I found quite interesting. I'll get to that. You know, but you think of those as British folklore, not necessarily stuff local to your area. So I was like, okay, let's go have a look at what we've got going on around here, because they still shape you. I'm very much shaped by the things that my family have told me, and very, very much shaped by what I want to be in relation to those stories, you know, a bit wilder, a bit more chaosy. Maybe not to the point where I steal a horse. Like, I really don't know what the end game was with that. He just wanted a horse to take him to church. I'm not sure what was going to happen to the horse after that. But,
horse chops.
Yeah, I don't know. But, like, I wanted to know, because, you know, you are affected by where you live.
Yeah,
you know.
And we've been talking a lot about Darren Brown's book Happy, and the fact that we absolutely adore that book, and the whole passage about how we're storytelling creatures, and we basically relate to ourselves through a series of stories that we tell about ourselves. That's how we build up who we are as people. From children, we learn through experience, and that's how we then move on. And unpacking that can be a very difficult and long process. As we all know from mental health. And
so it was interesting to see how the local area would explain itself, if that makes sense. You know, how people would explain the shape of the hills, and you know, like how in Northern Ireland they explain the volcanic rocks as a giant having built them to bridge the gap from Ireland to Scotland.
And of course, we all learn about it in school. We talk about the fact that Greek mythology is a lot of the time to explain natural phenomena,
we love
things
Greek
like
mythology.
that. Absolutely our favourites.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted there.
No,
I've been trying not to do this.
We've both been trying not to do this, but you know, you explain the world through stories. I wanted to see how the landscape around me, where I live, which I'm guilty of not paying too much attention to, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Was shaped. So we have loads of witches, which is awesome.
Like,
so many witches. But honestly, you haven't figured that out at this point after one episode. So yeah, there was like some really interesting stories. We have so many witches who would, just be a bit weird. I was telling you about one last night when we were talking about this, where there was one who basically would squint at people, and that made her a witch, apparently. So Lauren was saying, you were saying about how the sun might just be in her eye, but it's like she looked a bit weird, so she was a witch. And people would blame her for everything. And I was saying to you how, that kind of explains how people, or women, were kind of ostracised in the area and things like that, and
we talked a lot about the witch archetype and its use in folklore, in fairy tales. It's sort of growing in popularity again, as we all know. Popular media is rife with it. We love it. The content's great. And, you look back at these stories, and we obviously have our favourite folklore. As I said, Baba Yaga, one of my absolute favourite witches. If you'd like to, go have a read of the blog post. I apologise if it's not very good.
It'll be amazing. Shut up.
And... we love these stories for the weirdness, for the wonderfulness, and we just really enjoy picking them apart. And luckily, the library that I work at has a great local history section, which is how we manage to do most of our research on local folklore, how it relates. We were going to talk a little bit about the local murders, because Ruju's pretty much only famous for two things.
But then we thought...
But we thought no, because Tammy, on our Curiosity Crime and Cocktails Time podcast, she covers it so well. She's amazing at all of that kind of stuff. Please go check it out.
It's amazing.
We're not going to step on her toes because we can't do it like that.
Do that.
So please go.
But we do have some. Sorry, I interrupted again. But we do have some weird stories from around the area. So surely everyone knows Alton Towers.
I would hope so.
In the Midlands. There's so many stories about trees, being omens of death in, noble families, which I find really funny, because it's just it makes sense that this old-ass plant that, has probably seen your, I don't know, probably terrible family, given, I don't know where you got your money from, grow and develop, and it's on your land. So it would make sense that this old tree, that's probably as old as your family, would be an omen of death in the family. So, Alton Towers, again, there's a witch archetype in this one, where a gypsy, very Beauty and the Beast, turns up at, Alton Towers was a nobility. It was like a manor house. If you've ever done the Hex ride, I believe it is, in the big castle, you probably know a bit of this. I'm sure they use it as the background story. That's cool. So, a gypsy turns up at the house and basically says, I will read fortunes for food. And the guy's like, no. Paraphrasing story time. The guy's like, no. And while she was being dragged out of the house, she put a curse on the family, saying that any time a branch fell from the tree out on the grounds, someone in the family would die. And they were all like, whatever. Which was a bit weird, considering it was the late 1700s. Everyone was very superstitious still back then. But everyone was like, okay. And the next day, despite... Well, apparently, everyone was making fun of him, hey, he got cussed out by a gypsy. That's amazing, which I found brilliant. You're really a family if you don't cuss each other out every once in a while. But, the next day, once one of his family members actually died because when a tree branch fell from the tree. Wild, okay? So then, to counteract the curse, which I find funny, he chained the tree. He put chains all around the branches to ensure that none of them would break. So, now, I don't know what happened with the deaths after the family, whether, I don't know, there was a couple of storms, or the trees rattled whenever a family member died. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, that's interesting. And what is also interesting is, the chains would probably have been iron. Now, gypsies were probably... I don't know much about gypsy culture, so I feel like this was a witch archetype. But it's usually used to break curses that are caused by fae. Yes. Because fae are allergic to iron. So I found that quite interesting. It's so not only has he chained it to stop it from dropping and cursing his family, he's also chained it with probably iron, which breaks a lot of magical curses. So I found that quite interesting. But there was also a cedar tree planted at Bretby Park, which was the family home of Lord Carnarvon, who did the Tutankhamun excavations. And, everyone knows about how they were cursed by the pharaohs. Anyone who disturbed the tombs of the pharaohs would be ultimately cursed. And they had a cedar tree that was chained because there was an omen of death where the branch would fall on that tree, and that would signal a death in the family. That had been chained, but when he died, one of the branches had still fallen. I find that really creepy. Like, so I was like, so it didn't really work. Just saying, like, don't chain your trees, guys. I don't like it. So, but yeah, it was really interesting to see, because I don't know if that's a common thing across the UK. It's certainly a local thing where apparently rich families, if they've got a tree curse, which seems to be a trend, will chain it and stop it from falling, like to prevent. It didn't prevent the death, but it was like, well, it wasn't that fucking tree, so.
And we were giggling just at the commonalities and the fact that obviously we were talking about how mythical creatures or creatures of mythical nature, they can change across cultures and different places. The whole personality of these creatures, the things they do, the things that will stop them, this can all be altered over time. We talked a little bit about it last time with retellings and how things change over time with morals and things like that.
Definitely, I mean...
Had a little giggle about the whole, oh, have you not heard?
If you don't know that trope, it's like, when we were talking about mythology, Greek mythology, and how that is folklore, because it explains the world around you. It's just wider spread. It's more unanimous than local folklore. And it was like, I read a post somewhere, and it was like, if you treat every mythological story as the, oh, haven't you heard? trope, so like, you know, you come home, you find your wife is pregnant, and you've been at war for like 2 years, and you go, oh, haven't you heard? Zeus is in the area. Like, or you think, like, where's, I don't know, like, where's Atticus? You know, he's like been gone in the woods for 2 weeks. It's like, oh, haven't you heard of the cult of Dionysus? We all get drunk and have orgies in the woods. Like, it's amazing. He's like a god. Like, it's just, it's ridiculous,
and
but it's so funny.
We adore that trope.
Oh no, well, I love
really,
that trope.
Really
the
love
haven't
it.
you heard trope is amazing.
It's one of our absolute favourites, and as you can probably tell, we talk way too much about this stuff. It is one of our favourite subjects.
Yeah.
And
it's basically a hobby at this point.
It really is. It's one of our absolute favourites. You'll probably have many more episodes where we'll go into different facets of it. We'll go into, you know, if anyone has any recommendations, we'd love to hear it, because we're always looking for new versions of all this kind of stuff.
It was like when I told you last night about Scandinavian trolls.
Yes.
Like, that was really cool. Like, I think over here we think of trolls as quite evil. They, you know, they eat people, they eat children.
They're under bridges.
Yeah, they turn into stone if the sunlight gets them. They're generally terrifying. They're like riddles. But I know it's in Sweden, definitely. But I don't know whether it's generalised to Scandinavia, so if you can fact check me, that'd be great. But trolls are actually more helpful beings over there. They're not scary. They're not these really decrepit, old, terrifying beasts. They're quite round and friendly, and you treat them like aunts and uncles, from what I remember of the mythology. And they tend to have little tails. And they're kind of the people, like, if you were lost in the woods, over here, I think if you bumped into a troll in the woods, you'd be terrified. Because it's like, oh my god, I've got to get out of here before, like, the sun sets. But over there, it's like, they're more likely to take you into their house and feed you soup and send you on their merry way. And I find the dichotomy really interesting, because it's like,
definitely,
why was that the case? You know, were people just friendlier over there? And that's how they explained it. It's like, oh no, they're friendly forest folk, and over here, everyone was just a dick. Like, I don't know.
I mean, that led us on to talking about like primordial fear, and how not only does folklore explain how the world works, it also works to explain how we have fears about different things. I mean, I'm sure that pretty much everyone watching must have seen the whole Slender Man, which is definitely one of the most modern folklores to come out, especially the digital age. And how it speaks to the sort of primordial fear of, like, elongated...
white faces, like...
pale-faced, with the big teeth, and the suit, particularly, for some reason, creeps me out. I'm blaming Buffy for that. If you've ever seen the Gentleman episode, I swear to God, that episode freaks the crap out of me. Could not tell you why.
Haven't seen it yet, so we need to get on that.
Oh, okay. I will give no spoilers, especially because George has never seen it, but it's...
But we were talking about it, though, where we were like, what is it that it speaks to most of humanity? Because you find that everywhere. We were talking about the commonalities in folklore across the world. You find it everywhere. All humans are scared of pale-faced, elongated limbs, things that look like people but aren't.
Yes.
And it's like, what's out there?
And we talked about it the opposite way too. You see quite a lot the trope of the overtly human, the too plastic, the too healthy looking.
And it freaks you out.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Disney, that's how we got onto it. We're talking about Disney.
Yes.
When you see like Elsa and Belle and everything, they all have the big eyes and the beautiful, you know, whatever. They're all just too cute, you know what I mean? But in a good way. But have you ever seen the ones where they make the characters real? You know, they look like actual people and it starts to disturb you. If anyone's seen the Beowulf film that came out, oh goodness, I don't know, a few years ago.
We're showing our age a little bit now.
It was a hyper animated style, like Angelina Jolie starred in it, and they basically animated her instead of using her. I don't understand, but it freaks people out. People are very uncomfortable with it. So we were thinking, like, what is it about that's still prevalent today, and not just in folklore? That if you see something that looks too human, but not quite right, or human enough to you think it could be a person, but it's a bit weird. It's everywhere. It's in all cultures, and it's super weird. So it's like, what's out there that everyone's freaking out over? Everyone also has a type of fairy.
Yes, I was just thinking this.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about it in England. They're friendly, little, glittery, you know, feather wings.
Not in Ireland.
No. Which is why we spoke a little bit earlier about George's father and fey rings and things like
fey
that.
Rings, I still, like, to this day, it's again, that's affected me. Like, fey rings, I will not step in a mushroom circle. I won't do it. I won't do it. If you tell me that there's fae that live at the end of the road, I will not go down there unless I have an offering. It's not going to happen. I won't do it. Because it's just, you don't tick off the fae. You don't do it.
And that's having a resurgence itself. A lot of the posts that we follow online, a lot of the Instagram scrolling that I go through is based on new tropes about fae and stealing of names.
I really want to look into, I saw it on TikTok. Sorry.
Diversion, just for a moment.
I saw it on, no, it's still relevant.
Yes,
I saw it on TikTok about African fae.
Yes.
Like, which I had no idea. I've never heard of it, which I thought was so cool. I was like, and they were apparently very friendly, very helpful, and I was just like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I didn't, because you think of, unfortunately, you think of fae. And
we think of the fae rings, we think of the traditional, we think of the scary.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing. You grow up with a certain version of folklore, you tend to have certain aversions to things. And we were talking as well about the use of local folklore in explaining away and teaching children about avoiding certain things.
Yeah. One of the ones I read was about North Staffordshire, about how there was basically this old creepy thing that would come down from the hills and steal children. And I said to you, didn't it? It's like, that's clearly a paedophile. Like, like
it's like the child capture.
Honestly, it was so weird. I was just like, so why? Why has this become like just this old creepy guy who comes down from the hills and like, if you're out at night, it's going to steal away your children, so you've got to have a curfew. And I'm like, it just sounds like at some point during that area there was some creepy old dude that they didn't know how to deal with. So they were just like, kids, don't go out at night because, you know, the creepy guy that lives on top of the hill, he's kind of a monster, you know, so just get inside before dusk and you won't get snatched. It was super odd and like, again, we
talked a lot about the fact that we think it's, monsters are easier to explain away to kids, especially when trying to give them warnings. And we talked a bit about fables and the use, you know, all over the place in teaching kids how to have a moral code as they're growing up. Yeah,
I mean, like, how do you explain to kids, like, one of the stories, I've got it in, I've got my childhood Celtic Tales book down there, and there was a story about how there was 3 farmers, there's one either side of this very poor farmer, he's got like a strip of land and 1 cow, and these people are so greedy that even though the strip of land is worthless, because this one guy has it, they want it, so they kill his cow, because why not? You know, another paraphrase story. They kill his cow, so why not? And this guy's like,
the one last night was my absolute favourite.
I'll get to that. Like, and they kill it, and like he's like, well, okay, that sucks, but I'm kind of used to being poor. So he goes out and he starts conning people into getting money, and these guys are so enraged that he's not only like not buggered off so that he can get his, but he's thriving now. So he starts going out of his way to mess with these guys. I mean, he wasn't great. I mean, I think he outright murdered a dude just to fuck with these people at one point. But it's still like, I think the message of the story that I certainly got before I got old enough to realise, dude, he murdered someone. Like, was that if you're being fucked with, it's not bad to throw a few punches back, you know. But how would you explain that to kids, you know? in any other way other than a story.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
But should I get on to the one from last night because you loved that one?
Oh god, yeah. We might as well get right into it. So, welcome to Paraphrase Storytime with George as your host for today.
Lauren loves these. So,
That's brilliant.
actually, local folklore. I was saying about King Arthur earlier. We actually have a claim to a King Arthur story in the UK. Not only in the UK, in Staffordshire. Can't speak now. It's Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So apparently, where Gawain had his fight with the Green Knight. Oh, that rhymes. That's gross. The author of one of the books I was reading, I'll put it up here. I'll send a picture and I'll put it up here. Was saying how he thinks he's found where that location could be, which I thought was really cool. I did not know. I think of Arthur as like all over down in Tintagel.
Yes.
But yeah, so Gawain and the Green Knight. Here we go. So one day, King Arthur and the boys. King Arthur and the boys are just having a party, getting a bit drunk. Everyone's celebrating how virtuous everybody is. Whatever, valor and honor, all that kind of crap. And this dude, this knight, just comes strolling in on this horse, all dressed in green, and is like, "Hey, I have a bet with all of you." And everyone's like, "Who's this big green wanker? Like, who's that?" Like, he's like, "No, I have a bet. I'm going to do this. We're going to throw down with King Arthur and the boys." It's like, all right. He comes in and he basically challenges all of them. He's like, "Who wants to cut off my head?" And if they win, if they do it, they have to meet me in a year, and I get to do the same thing for them. Now, I was saying to you last night, this struck me as a bit odd that they were all like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's behead this dude." And I was like, y'all have already fought dragons, you know a wizard, and you have had many fights with Morgana Le Fay, who is a fairy. At what point did you think this guy was just like, yeah, he just wants to be beheaded. We're going to be fine in this situation. This doesn't sound suspicious at all. I was like, okay. So they're all like, yeah, who should do it? Who should do it? Like, who's coming in giving it Billy Big Bollocks, as my dad would say, and like, yeah, no, I'm super cool. I'm the Green Knight. Let's do this. And it's like, okay. So you'll start discussing, like, who's going to cut this guy's head off? Who's going to do this? And everyone's like, "No, I'll do it, Arthur. I'm doing it," because, Arthur's the boy. And then little Gawain, Arthur's little nephew, stands up, and he's like, "I want to do it, Uncle, because, I haven't proved myself yet." But do you know what? I was saying to you how good it is that we have some stuff about men's virtue in this. Everyone's trying to prove themselves, but it's not about, like, saving women. It's about, like, proving to my boys.
I'm so virtuous.
I'm so virtuous. Like, okay, guys. So Gawain jumps up. He's like, "I'm going to behead this guy. It's fine." And the good knight's like, "Cool." So they're all like, "Yeah, Gawain, let's do it." So he takes the axe, chops this dude's head off. Everyone's like, "Woo!" And the head goes wrong. This guy just hops off his horse, still dressed in green, picks up the head, tucks it under his arm. Is like, "Okay, Gawain, see you in a year. Like, let's do this." Talking. Like, got to imagine my head in my arm at this point. And just fucks off. Like,
Sorry.
Like, at no point did anyone think that's a bit weird. Literally, everyone just jumped into, "Oh, fuck, Gawain, you're a bit screwed." Like, so casual. And it made me laugh so much, because I was like, I feel like that is the response for most of the locals around here. Like, "You're a bit fucked now." Like,
it's not going to be good for you when he comes back.
No. So he then goes, I assume he spends, because I was giggling so much, and I assume he spends a year just rolling about, doing things, being gallant, trying to get a story to come home to the boys with. And he's fully prepared to die, which I found, again, very strange. And he ends up near where the battle is supposed to be, and ends up staying at this innkeeper's house or something, who he shares with a wife. And the innkeeper's like, "Ah, Gawain, somehow, miles away from where you started, I've heard of your travels. I will offer you your stay for 3 days so that you can prepare for your battle with the Green Knight." He's like, "Oh, cheers." He's like, "I'm going to have to go out and get food."
Again.
I don't really understand why the innkeeper does not have food. He's like, "I'm going to have to go out and get food. So, just, make yourself at home. But anything my wife gives you while I'm out, just return it to me." And I was like, reading this, I'm like, no one finds this suspicious. I'm sure you're meant to enjoy folk tales for what they are, which is just a charming little ditty. But I'm just sitting here in my jaded 26-year-old body going like, everyone in this story is stupid, okay? That's suspicious. That's weird. anybody. So he's like, okay, that's fine, see you later. And he goes away.
Composure.
And the wife comes in, and I can't remember what happens with the first 2 evenings, but she basically, both times she tries to seduce him. I think she tries to give him a hanky the first time, and he's like, oh no, like I couldn't possibly, because, you know, back then when you gave him like your handkerchief, you were showing him favour, and he's like, oh no, my honour, my virtue, my virginity, you know. So he returns the hanky to the innkeeper.
Paraphrase story time is my favourite.
Returns the hanky to the innkeeper, who's very, very grateful, all that crap. Second night it happens. He has to go out and get food again, or maybe some cotton. I don't know. He's going out for chores, and trying not to like, don't know what he's getting, and like
he's quite happy to be like, now if she gives you, give it me back.
Yeah,
like, sorry.
Some very kinky shit going on.
That may have been my comment last night.
That was your comment last night, saying kink shaming King Arthur's man.
Don't want to be out here king shaming 18th century knights.
so next day it happens again. I don't know what she gives him, but
I'm crying.
But he gives it back. It's nothing like salty or anything like that, because on the third evening,
He's gonna die a little.
she manages to give him a kiss on the third evening. It's like, oh! And at that point, he's distraught because his honour really has been besmirched, you know. So he goes out to the innkeeper and,
ruined.
like a good boy, kisses the innkeeper. He's like, because the innkeeper came back every day. He's like, did my wife give you anything? Actually asked the dude straight up, what did she give you? Dude, I'd be worried if you were into pegging. Like. This is not a kid-friendly show.
That makes it to the final edit.
That's staying there. Don't take out the reference to pegging. We've gone from a book review to pegging.
You know what? I can't.
So, I'm going to carry on. Everyone's dead. I've killed everybody.
Oh my god.
Much like this knight's trying to do to Gawain. Killed everybody, slain everybody. So he gives him a kiss, and I'm like, I'm here for the, this casual kissing between friends, or strangers in this case. And he's like, okay, Gawain, thanks for staying, I guess, and thanks for giving me back everything my wife gave you. Fuck off and go deal with your Green Knight. So he wanders down to this place in Staffordshire, which I've completely forgotten, I'm sorry, that we have claimed to, where the battle between Gawain and the Green Knight was supposed to happen. Although it wasn't really a battle, because as soon as Gawain gets in there, the Green's like, hey, Gawain, you made it! Like, okay, fine. And Gawain's like, yes, of course, upon my honour, I swore I would be here to be beheaded, because that's normal upon knights. And, he's like, okay, here's the chopping block, I've got my axe, I'm ready, I'm raring to go. Gawain very dutifully puts his head on the plaque. And the Green Knight's like, right, I've got 3 attempts at this, yeah? So, if I don't make it on the third go, you're free to go. Again, I don't really understand the rules.
You got 1 attempt.
Yeah.
But for me,
you fully cleaved my head off, but I've got 3 attempts at this. Your neck is clearly made of sturdier stuff, despite the fact that I'm clearly magical and you're immortal, capable of death. Whatever. So
I'm sorry, I haven't moved on from the pegging. I can't.
He's got his axe raised, and Gawain's woo, gonna die honourably. And he's like, just make sure my boys know that I die honourably. Whatever. So the knight goes, and he, once. Nothing happens, and Gawain's like, ooh, did he miss? And he's like, oh, okay, I guess I have another attempt. Goes again, nothing. Nothing happens, and Gawain is still not thrown by this. And on the third attempt, he thwacks down, and it nicks him. Just on the back of the neck. He's got little blood draws, but he's still intact, he's still alive, ooh. And he gets up, and he's like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty weird. And the Green Knight transforms into the innkeeper. And he's like, and Gawain's like, I should have known. No, you didn't, Gawain, don't lie. And he was like, yeah, and the wife pops out. from behind, it's like behind, she's like, hi, I'm in on it too. And it turns out that, she was like, no, I had to challenge you to behead me, to test your honour. I had to drag you away and test your honour and your pureness as a man. Which, again, I'm totally here for in folklore, because you hear that a lot with women. You hear a lot of women being tested on, like, their virginity and all those chastity belts shit. But you don't hear it with men. I'm not really sure beheading is the way to go with testing men and their virginity and their honour and their valour, but...
It's a bit of a weird leap, but alright.
And, like, it turns out he's like, yeah, basically, I had to test you with, like, the wiles of a woman. So, my wife has come out, and, like, the only reason you got nicked at the end was because she managed to kiss you. That's it. And Gawain's like, oh, of course, how could I have been so stupid? And it's like, a minute ago, Gawain, you knew what was going on, so, don't really know where this is going.
And we, for the life of us, cannot figure out what the fuck that fairy tale
I'm not
is
sure
supposed to teach
what
you.
it's supposed to teach you. I think it's about being, like, gallant and respectful and stuff like that, but I was like, there's no respect. He full on let the... Well, I don't know whether he let... There was a kiss. There wasn't supposed to be a kiss, but there was. But there are just some stories, I think, that no matter how much you want to try and draw meaning from them, are just fucking weird. And that was one of them. But I kind of love that there was this weird... Because you think of Arthur and being so noble and like a story of gallantry and protecting the kingdom, and it's like, no, they were just boys being boys. Like, having a party, some dick comes in, challenges him to a fight, and somehow chaos ensues. Like, I really don't know. But it's one of my favourite things that I've read from researching for this.
Definitely, it gave us a good few hours worth of cry laughing. And
I didn't understand.
I made her redo this.
Lauren requested that. Like,
it was as soon as you came out with
big green wanker.
I was like, no, that's got to go into the podcast.
But I think, if you're going to if I'm going to try and draw meaning from that chaos that I just spewed, I would apologise, but it was gold.
It was.
I would say, like, it just shows that,
the meaning may be lost over time.
The meaning may be lost over time, but it's still a good story. I think sometimes you can just have a story be a good story.
Definitely.
It doesn't necessarily have to explain the world around you. It can just be, like, I think a good example of that is Chaucer.
Yes.
With the Canterbury Tales. It's a series of stories. They're all on a beautiful pilgrimage. And even that's wild. There's one about, like, a woman sticking her ass out the window and having some guy that she's in love with, like, kissing it. That's super weird.
Why are you obsessed with arses today, Georgie? You've gone pegging and kissing arse.
That's legit in the story.
Next up, we talk about women.
God, what is this podcast turned into?
I said it was going to be about folklore. I think I've got into weird kink shaming, so... Anyway.
We're not ones to kink shame, guys.
We're not. If you're into pegging, you're into pegging. Go off. Like...
You might lose your head, but get into pegging.
I'm sorry, this is going to be the funniest fucking edit ever. Do we need, like, a spoof reel for, like, the past 10 minutes?
I think we do. So, yeah, I think...
We're cutting none of it out.
I'm sorry for any of our family members that are watching this.
Really sorry.
It started off so wholesome.
We were
not
doing
wholesome anymore.
so well. And now we've given you
tale? No, that's a good point, actually. What fairy tale do you know that has not been completely, like, distilled? When you go back, isn't, like, completely terrifying or completely weird. Like, there is... Folklore is there to explain weirdness in the world. You've got Zeus with his son. Mind you, Zeus is a slut as well. Like... I'm going to put that out there.
We've talked about this quite a lot, and there was a very, very funny reel that we saw where it was basically like women in mythological times.
Yeah, blame
Zeus. Like, are you trying to seduce me? And there's like Zeus as a literal goose.
Yeah. I'm a goose. Are you into it?
And she's like, it's working.
Yeah. Or like a bumblebee, I think was one. Or
that was the like...
There was one where he was a squid.
Yeah, it gets... I mean, we're not even going to go into that territory.
I'm sure
Let's not, shall we?
Some folklore is just a drunken rant in a pub somewhere.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it's like, no, Zeus turns up right, so he's a goose. And I'm like, is this your way of teaching men how to pull? Because I guarantee that unless he's, like, rich in geese... Because that's like a currency. That's not going to work on me.
And apart from that one chick who apparently was into the honking, I don't really...
like, oh, maybe that's where this comes from. I don't know. I've lost all.
We've entered weird territory
I
now.
think I've embodied the spirit of my great uncle at this point. Just to circle back, I think I've embodied that
I
spirit
also
quite
feel
well.
like you being my roommate has really ruined you as a person.
You ruined me as a person years ago.
We somehow ended up on pegging.
Anyway, like
So,
trying to reclaim some dignity, it's not going to work.
violent U-turn from whatever point we stopped making sense.
I think my point was going to be, like, before all this, was that folklore can just be funny. You know,
Yes.
Chaucer's stories. Funnily enough, that one started off with a gallant story about two guys who were into one girl and, you know, how they had to
got a
fight.
headache from laughing. I'm sorry.
It's always nice. Like,
Yeah.
and, like, it starts off all gallant and nice and, you know, it's about two guys and, like, the breaking up of brothers, all that kind of stuff. But then it goes on to, like I said, the one with the butt kissing, which I was just like, it kind of just went down, much like this podcast, it went downhill very quickly. So I think sometimes it's just entertainment value, and it just depends what you're
Yes.
into. And I'm sure a lot of folklore was based on real things, like that guy up in the hills, or that witch who had trouble seeing, I guess.
And we're sure there's some sort of wild tale out there that's actually about George's granddad stealing a horse.
Probably.
I mean, you'll probably
I would love
go to some small town in Ireland and
Yeah.
everyone knows fucking George.
Yeah, it's like, oh
Like-
yeah, you mean George O'Sullivan. Like, it's like, what? Like, yeah, I'm just going to be called out in all my family. But, yeah, I feel like some things can just be funny. We can draw meaning from them, and sometimes they can have meaning, but sometimes they can just be a giggle. Or
Yes.
you don't even have to look, if you're reading like a serious story, or, you know, like, I'm sure Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is, like, everyone's on about it as, like, one of the most beautiful poems in the world, and I've just ripped the shit out of it. And, like, it's like, but, like, that's how I chose to interpret it. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything bad. It's a great story. It really is. Like, don't read this version to your kids, but if you want to read the original version, which is much more PG, you can do that.
I
Like-
love this version of it.
Like-
It was my favourite.
You can take stories however you want them to. You know, if you feel like, what was the one we were on about last night where we can take it any way we want? Shut up, everybody. Okay, fuck you all.
I'm so sorry.
You did that.
You can
You trapped
absolutely
me.
take it any which way you want. It's awful.
Pegging. It's gonna be my catchphrase,
Oh
isn't
my
it?
God.
Jesus.
It's so funny, I can't. And I can't. No, any single. Thank you. Fucking any single word now. I'm not going to. Ignore me, please.
No, so, yeah, I think you can just take a story.
Any which way you would like.
Even if it explains the world around you, you can take it as like a moral address on somebody and how to cope with bullying or how to
Yes.
behave in society, you know, like anything like that. And equally, you can just take it as a story. You can just.
Definitely.
I'm worried about saying anything now. Like, you can just enjoy it for what it is, or do what I did and take it on a completely different turn. So,
Which seems to be the most fun course of action.
I hope you enjoyed Paraphrase Storytime. I'll try and make more of them if you did.
We, actually, yes, quick note about all that, just to finally U-turn back to the fact we're on a podcast.
Yeah.
We are going to be opening up, like, a TikTok channel when
Mhm.
we figured out,
How to use TikTok.
yeah, because we enjoy it, but we're
not
kind
on
of,
it.
like, on the, we're not sure. So we're going to have a look at that. We'll give you some shorts. You can join us for paraphrasing story time. Mine might be worse. Probably be worse.
She is actually worse than me. So
Which is why I take full responsibility for the fact this is probably my influence.
she is my corrupter, but yes.
We will try and do some more paraphrasing story time. We're going to have fun, geeky videos, basically anything we can think of. Probably the gag reels from all these episodes because,
We
let's
have to.
face it, some of this might never show up. And, that depends, actually, because apparently
They
we're not
love it,
allowed
so
to cut it
no.
out. So we really hope that you'll join us for that. I can't even remember what point we were on before we did paraphrasing stories. Well, yes, I think I will do a short and a bit on the next show. We have a new favourite author for poetry.
Mhm.
She's brilliant, but again,
We might do a whole podcast on poetry.
we
and
may
then
not add her on to the end of this one
And then
because
be a bit more well behaved. It's your fault. Like,
I mean, yes, linearly.
You made me tell it, so. But that's. I don't even know if we made any dent in like what folklore means. I think it can mean whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah, we had a point.
We don't think we made it. We don't think we made a point, but we had one.
Can't really tell you at this point. I will try and read my notes, see if I have any sense of what the hell I was talking about. Other than the fact that, yes, we all love hearing about our weird family stories, about, you know, all the different crazy stuff. My family has the weirdest stories. I'm not going to out anybody on this. Mainly because not far enough removed as like your great uncle. But we love that. We love all the weird stories. We love the fact that it makes you who you are. We did talk a little bit about familial pressure and the problem with, you know, sort of if you have a very well-to-do family. I mean, we all know the kind of pressure that can put onto kids, how that can change who you are. I talk a lot about how I got my fine art degree out of spite and the fact that I was like, no, fuck y'all. I want to do this. Yeah. So, yeah, we wanted to talk a bit about, and I don't know. I don't think any of the podcasts... We can do a part 2. Like... Yeah, we might have to. I don't think any of our podcasts are going to follow a linear track or anything like that.
We hope you enjoyed it anyway.
We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to see about whether we can just end it here and not cause any more damage, honestly.
If I caused anyone any trauma...
You probably shouldn't watch the next episode. Don't watch So, because now she's started, that gives me full license.
It really does. So, but yeah,
we really hope that you've enjoyed it. We did talk a bit about our favourite books. I will quickly flash up this one, which is actually for children.
Yeah. This is the one where the guy murders people. Like,
you can see how well that ended.
Yeah. And then, So,
yes. And also one of our favourite, again, I probably won't name any this time around, just in case, because we want you to like us, and...
We do. We need you to.
It's part of who we are. Anyway, we really hope you've enjoyed it. Once again, thank you for Together Records having us. We apologise. And also, Happy Alt Media, please go, follow, look at the other podcasts, the ones that actually have a coherent thread of thought. I'm sure the other podcasts probably keep to some sort of
plot,
point. You know, probably don't bring up pegging as much as we do. That's right, like 4 or 5 times. We might as well just go with it now. And please, if you want to hear about all the awesome stuff we've got going on, follow us on social media. You know, you can say whatever you like to us pretty much about this.
Fine.
And we really actually hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope
had
that
fun
you'll
making it.
in for, I mean, I've got a headache. I've been laughing so hard. It's brilliant. But we really hope you'll join us for more paraphrasing story time. Next time it'll be my turn. It's going to be awful. And,
thanks for watching, guys. We
hope you made it to the end. We do love you. And, yes, join us for episode 3 if you can stomach it.
Bye, guys. We love you. Bye.